Welcome to another episode, everyone. Excuse me. We have footage of a deadly, bloody riot that took place in Folsom State Prison in California between the blacks and the Sureños, leaving one individual dead on the yard and 13 injured, 8 with stab wounds, 5 shot by the police with live rounds of the Mini 14, we call it Mama Mini, there in prison. Apparently, it kicked off on the yard, and 100 individuals or so ended up converging on the yard, clashing, and going up against one another with bloody weapons. Stay out of prison. Let's get into it.
Folsom State Prison today, northeast of Sacramento. Mass violence broke out between 2 rival prison gangs. One man died and many others were injured. Prison guards fired live bullets to break up the riot in the exercise yard. Bob McKenzie reports.
Folsom Prison is divided into 3 facilities. This morning's riot broke out shortly after 9 o'clock among prisoners in the recreation yard of B facility. And the result was this. Injuries that strained ambulance services to the limit. 1 prisoner was killed, 13 more were wounded and rushed to Davis Medical Center. Of those men, 8 were stabbed by other prisoners. 5 were shot by prison guards. No guards were wounded, but 4 were injured, 2 seriously enough to require medical attention. About 300 prisoners were in the yard when the disturbance began. 9 guards were also there. What prison officials called a dispute broke out between black and Chicano prisoners. The fight widened until at least 100 prisoners were involved. Prison guards tried to break up the melee. Guards in the yard do not carry lethal weapons. They do carry 37-millimeter rubber baton guns.
It's a projectile that is aimed at the inmate about 3 feet away from.
So I said the Sureños because that's normally how it goes. I'm not 100% sure that these are Sureños. This is Folsom Prison. They could have had Norteños there in Folsom as well, but I very highly doubt it. I very highly doubt anyway that it was a riot between the blacks and the Norteños there in Folsom. Never heard anything like that. More than likely, it was the Sureños. This was obviously some time ago. I believe this happened in 1996, but these riots, this is how far back they go. They have been happening amongst us for some time, the different ethnicities, the blacks particularly, and the Sureños. Things have dissipated some for those who may not know, who are new to the channel. The Inside Story with me, Damian Porter. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. I have done over 30 years of incarceration. Unfortunately, been home for over 4 years now, thankfully. And these riots are deadly and bloody, as we can see here. 1 dead, 13 injured. Individuals being taken out on stretchers. These individuals are fathers, sons, brothers, uncles on both sides. And again, now at least the riots and the racial tension has subsided some in these maximum security prisons. They're not as deadly, not as ferocious, and not as frequent as in recent years. And that's really a good thing because we all are trying to make it out, make it home to our families, the individuals who are incarcerated. These were some deadly situations right here.
From the melee or from the.
Over 300 inmates on the yard. And that's how it be, out there deep. And then 100 of them end up clashing. That's a lot of people out there. 100 people out there fighting, swinging knives at each other. Imagine that. That's deadly, man.
The incident, and it just rebounds.
Do you know if that was used here?
Yes, it was.
And then there was warning shots from above?
There were warning shots, yes.
And then shots were fired into the
shots were fired. I don't know how many at this time. I have from 15 to 17 shots.
Prison officials said the man who died was shot in the buttocks, but it was not yet clear whether that was the cause of his death. The 8 men with stab wounds ran up against fellow prisoners wielding shivs, handmade knives, and stabbing implements.
They're very creative. They're able to melt down plastic or maybe gather weapon stock such as pieces of metal, sharpen a toothbrush.
Folsom was built to house men who have committed the most serious crimes, and its population includes prisoners.
Yeah, of course, that's true. We all know that inmates, prisoners, incarcerated people make weapons out of all sorts of things. Plastic, you name it. Out of cartons, they melt it down, tie things up, and these are deadly weapons indeed.
Is considered the most violence-prone. Like other California prisons, Folsom is overcrowded. The prison was built for 1,700 inmates. It currently houses about 3,200. Officials here say they plan to keep this facility locked down for the weekend.
So it's double the capacity that it was designed for. Designed for 1,700 and it's holding 3,200. And they wonder why these individuals are there and they're miserable, they're upset and clashing with one another. They take the violence and the anger and the misery out on one another when it's really the police there, the government, the administration that is helping to cause the misery.
And that means prisoners stay in their cells, no outside recreation, and no visitors. At Folsom State Prison, Bob McKenzie for the 10 o'clock news.
The Sacramento County coroner has now identified the inmate killed today as 22-year-old Victor Hugo Flores of Los Angeles. He was serving an 18-year sentence for manslaughter and attempted murder.
Serving an 18-year sentence for manslaughter and attempted murder. And as we heard, he got shot in the buttocks, 22 years old. But this, again, was in 1996, so he would be home now. A riot took his life. Shot, stabbed, whatever happened, involved in a riot. And he lost his life at 22 years old and should have been home now being a father and a grandfather. Because prison is not safe for anyone and it's not good for any of us. Prison itself is not designed for human consumption.
San Quentin Prison here in the Bay Area, correctional officers today said that Richard Allen Davis received a rude greeting when he entered the prison yesterday.
I bet he did receive a rude greeting, Richard Allen Davis. This is the individual here who killed 12-year-old Polly Class and is indeed considered responsible for the 3 strikes law. He is responsible for the 3 strikes law. This is who they need to be taken out in there.
Yesterday afternoon, Davis was sentenced to death yesterday, then transferred to San Quentin. John Fowler reports on his incarceration.
At San Quentin Prison, the man who killed Polly Class spent this day in maximum security, removed from the general prison population. But prison officials say they are making no special security arrangements for prisoner D11903. It's just that Richard Allen Davis is not yet ready for death row. He remains in a so-called adjustment cell.
Standard cell, once again, single-man cell, and he has all his needs are taken care of.
But no television and no contact with other prisoners yet.
Inmates in administrative segregation and or the housing unit he's in at this time are fed in their cells.
Davis may have well-founded fear for his safety. Guards say when Davis was led into prison yesterday, he was jeered and booed and that he cursed back at the inmates. Among the almost 500 convicts on death row now, experts say some may want to kill Davis for status, or more likely as revenge, blaming Davis for California's 3 strikes law.
And you have a lot of very damaged people on the row. One of them might very well view it that way.
Veteran capital case attorney Barry Helft says death row has become a much more
what it is. They should view it that way.
Place in the last few years, with more and more gang killers who bring street violence attitudes onto the road.
Gang killers. They may very well view it that way. Well, they should view it that way. He's responsible for the 3 strikes law.
Hearing stories that there's been a collection taken up throughout the entire prison system, and there's a contract on Davis, and they've even got details worked out as to how to trickle the money into the account of whoever does him in.
Experts we talked with doubt that level of organization within prison walls. They also say, although Davis may be the high-profile inmate of the month, there are plenty of others. And Davis has proved in previous prison time he knows how to survive inside. Legal experts say even if his death sentence is ultimately upheld, and despite a recently streamlined federal appeals process, the automatic state appeal could delay Davis's execution for 8 years or more.
Yeah, I bet it can. They always find a way out. A 12-year-old girl, polyclass, and again, that's the individual, Richard Allen Davis, responsible for the 3 strikes law. That's when the 3 strikes law came into effect when he committed that crime. He committed the crime, but it was only people like me really generally affected by the 3 strikes law. Of course, the story of our lives, America. Welcome to America. There you have it. A riot between the blacks and the Sureños took place some time ago. Good thing is these sort of riots have dissipated some, but you still, if you're going to be in prison, unfortunately, I don't wish it on anyone. I want everyone to get out that is in there. If you are out, do not go in there. Nevertheless, everyone is not going to listen. So if you do go, then just still comport yourself in the right way and don't get involved in anything. And you won't have to worry about this sort of stuff because as we can see, not everyone makes it home from prison. Some people go and they just do not make it home. Only one died, but who knows what the injuries were, the extent of the injuries of the others who survived. 8 stabbed, 5 shot. Did some of them lose the ability to walk, some brain function, lose an eye? We don't know. Still life altering, even though they were not unalived. Prison itself is just not worth it. Think about what you do before you do it. Stay safe and stay free, people.